Good. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you're able to tune in to this special conversation. My name is Dave Sleet. I'm co-founder of A&A Psychological Accreditation, and we're going to go into a very special birthday celebration conversation, all around the importance of effective voluntary support platforms. Now, all week, we're hosting these conversations with professionals, non-professionals, therapists, counsellors, people that are working with and around the world of mental health. But today's conversation is going to have a very different backdrop to it. This conversation is going to be focusing on the importance of that effective voluntary support platform with diversity and neurodiversity as its backdrop. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined in today's conversation by one of the UK's leading professionals in the field, Sarah Templeton. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, love. I'm really good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm really enjoying this week. It's birthday, and it's being shared right across the week. So
very happy birthday and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Siobhan has sent her apologies as she is with clients pretty much all week this week.
Bless her. Yeah.
And it is just so, exceptionally hectic on the private practice front. But I'm sure you're experiencing exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Yeah.
It's phenomenal how the wave of client demand and the importance of the voluntary support platform kind of go hand in hand, don't they?
Well, yes, they do. And I think our experience because my company has now got approaching 80 therapists. Now, those 80 therapists, a lot of them have been with quite a wide variety of different voluntary support bodies. So some of them, for example, specialize in addiction. So they will be with that logical body. Some of them are specific hypnotherapists, so they belong to specific hypnotherapy registrations, but and some of them are coaches, purely coaches, and they like to belong to sort of coaching organizations, and that's fine. And a lot of our therapists obviously are members of 2 or 3. That's not unusual either. But what is different with yours, and so far you're the only people that we know who do this, so we have got quite a good understanding of different organizations and how they operate, because as I say, we're members, probably I would say my team are members of around 10 or 12 different organizations for their various specialities. The only one of all of those to have any sort of acknowledgement of the difficulties that neurodiverse people have joining those organizations, as far as we are aware, is you. We have yet to come across anybody who is so aware of neurodiversity that they have gone out of their way to make the joining process different. We don't know anybody as of yet. So that when I'm talking to my therapists, counselors, coaches, hypnotherapists, addiction therapists, they are thrilled. And in fact, they're incredulous at first. They don't believe that anybody has actually made things easier for them. They can't believe that because they're so not used to it. But when I stress that, yes, actually somebody has gone out of their way to listen to what we can do, because we can do incredible things, people with neurodiversity, we can do absolutely incredible things. And the one thing we can do more than anybody else is relate to clients with these neurodiversities. So, we accept that we've got the differences, but it's very, very unusual to have an organization who not only accept those differences, but do something about it. Because it's one thing saying, oh yes, we accept neurodiversity, we accept ASD therapists and ADHD. They might say they accept it, but they don't have any understanding of what that actually means for the therapist and what they could actually do to make the therapist's life easier, which is, you know, which is huge. And nobody, to my knowledge, I might be wrong, but to my knowledge, no other organization has put any sort of neurodiversity, different ways of working in place.
Yeah.
You have, you know, but I don't know of anybody else yet that's done that.
Yeah. And what Sarah's picking up for anybody that isn't aware is APPA's verbal application pathway. And Sarah, you've experienced that firsthand, and being able to kind of communicate and build a fuller understanding of a professional's experience, their knowledge, their understanding in their ethical delivery of therapeutic support. So when you experienced that, what was it like for you?
The polar opposite of what it's been with other organizations. I'm not saying all of them are difficult. Some of them are more difficult than others. You know, some of them are relatively accessible for people with neurodiversity, but some of them are appalling. I mean, there's one organization, for example, that for their accreditation, I know there are people that are trying to do their accreditation at the moment, and it's reducing them to tears because they just cannot understand the questioning, they cannot understand the portals, they cannot understand what's expected of them, and they've got nobody to actually ask to guide them on what they need to do. So I know it's reducing people to literally, you know, a huge amount of anxiety, a lot of stress. Some of them are giving up completely. Some of them are not giving up, but they're finding it incredibly difficult. So I think with yours, how I found it was incredibly easy, incredibly accessible. I loved the fact that I was given options. So for example, one of the pieces you wanted, I can't remember what it was now. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been on psychological awareness, but you gave me the option of either writing something or doing a video. Now, you know, for me, actually, writing isn't a problem, only because I dictate things onto phones. But for a lot of people, writing is a problem. So I'm sure they would bite your hand off and go for the video option. But to have the options at all is amazing, because, you know, this is the thing with neurodiversity. People think, oh, everyone with dyslexia needs this. Everyone with dyspraxia needs this. Everybody with ADHD needs that. And it could not be further from the truth, because we are all so different. And a lot of us have got a combination of different conditions. So, for example, me, I'm moderate to severe ADHD, severe dyspraxia, dyscalculia, sensory processing disorder. So there are certain things for me that I find very easy, like talking to you on a Zoom call because you've sent me a Zoom link. I can do that. If you'd asked me to set up that Zoom call, no, I can't do that. You know, there's certain things that I can't do, but the person next to me would be brilliant at, and they would also be neurodiverse. So I think the thing with neurodiversity is that what other organizations don't understand is that there are no two neurodiverse people the same. Even if you've got two people with dyslexia, you know, there will be one of them that can spell and one of them that can't. And then there'll be another one that can spell but can't punctuate. And then there'll be another one that can spell and punctuate but doesn't understand grammar. You know, there's so many different variations of each of these conditions. And you can't just lump them all together and go, oh, okay, we'll do that route for dyslexia and that route for dyspraxia. And that, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think, you know, I suppose for the wider public looking at neurodiversity and looking at neurodiverse professionals, there can be, and I'm playing devil's advocate, but there can be a fear factor that the protocols, the protections have somehow been reduced in order to meet the kind of expectation of allowing those neurodiverse practices into an organization. Do you feel that's the case with APPA?
No, 100%. And I think most neurodiverse people would find that the thought of that very patronizing. You know, that the vast majority of my therapists are way more qualified than me. A lot of them have got masters. I'm taking on a lady this week who's got a master's in psychotherapy. She's also extremely ADHD and extremely dyslexic, you know. So we don't expect any what's the word, we don't expect excuses or oh, don't worry about that bit and don't do that bit. We don't expect that. We just expect to be able to do things the way we can do them. We can do these things, but this is what annoys me about when you do difference and diversity at college. You kind of touch on it, you know, and you mustn't be racist and you mustn't be this and you mustn't be that, but there's no real understanding of the fact that difference and diversity means accepting each person's uniqueness, and everybody with neurodiversity is very, very unique. There are no two the same. And then working with that, because we can achieve, I'm a level 5 counsellor and I'm very happy with my level 5, but the vast majority of my counsellors have gone on, they've got degrees, they've got PhDs, they've got masters. These are not stupid people, but these are people who certain things are difficult for them and they need a different way of doing it. It's not an easier way of doing it, it's a different way of doing it that works for them and the way their brain works.
And that's really the point of how effective is that voluntary support platform, because we've had voluntary support platforms in the world of mental health now for the best part, get this, of about 40 years.
Right.
But how effective they have been in the outcomes of delivery, with all the best intentions in the world, has created the outcomes for the mental health arena that we already experience.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it is with the best intention in all the world. I would question that, because I know of organisations who don't treat their counsellors with respect. They certainly don't understand difference and diverse. And please don't think I'm labelling everybody like this. I'm just saying there are some that do not accept difference and diversity. They'll put it on their manifesto, their quote, oh, we accept difference and diversity. But when that difference and diversity hits them in the face, they don't accept it. And I've got numerous counsellors who've run into trouble with different organisations purely for their ADHD or their ASD or their dyslexia, dyspraxia, all these numerous neurodiversities conditions, because the voluntary bodies, what they need to accept is that clients with these conditions are more likely to find themselves in therapy than any other, because they are struggling with these conditions. They're struggling to be accepted. They're struggling to get work. They're struggling in relationships. There's all sorts of reasons why people with neurodiversities struggle more in different areas. Addiction is another very big area. You know, with ADHD, hand in hand with that comes addiction. Now, it's very apparent who does understand difference and diversity and the differences within difference and diversity, and that they innumerable. As I say, I've worked with ADHD and ASD clients now for about 12 years. I've never met two even faintly the same. It's not. Everybody's got such a different combination. We've got different conditions. We've got different comorbidities. We've got different severities. Some of us have got physical issues that go along with them. The combo is always different. So you need a governing body that understands this and accepts it. And I've had many, many people. I mean, my team, as I say now, we're with our trainees, we're pushing 100 now, therapists. We're coming close to 100. And my therapists are leaving other voluntary bodies in their droves because they know that they are not understood. Then it's not only that they're not understood, they don't feel they are accepted. They don't feel that they are accepted for their condition. And they feel that if anything was to ever happen because of their condition, let's say autism, let's say somebody put a complaint in because of something connected to their autism, they don't feel they would get the backup of that governing body, because the governing body doesn't take into account the traits of their autism. They might say, we're ASD friendly, we're ASD aware, but when the traits of that condition appear and might appear in a complaint or a whatever, they don't feel that that particular governing body has enough understanding or even wants to understand. This is the killer. They don't even really want to understand what those differences and diversities are and how they impact the therapist, and then to support the therapist. That's what's been missing. And those people, as I say, they're leaving in droves because they know they're not understood, and critically, they know if anything ever happened, there would be no attempt for the governing body to understand their condition and to support them with whatever issue was coming, was happening. That's the fear.
Yeah.
There's no attempt to understand the idiosyncrasies of each neurodiversity.
Yeah.
That's what's been missing.
And I just want to clarify the kind of the governing body kind of concept that you used there.
I shouldn't have used it. I shouldn't have used it. They don't exist. I know that. They don't exist.
So
voluntary supportive ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So for anybody that's watching this and kind of isn't aware, governing body is a phrase that relates to organizations that are only empowered by the government in order to restrict access to complete specific tasks and job roles. The UK government has not as yet appointed any organisation to do that role. So the term governing body has been usurped by charities predominantly across the UK to assert their own authority. But they are all voluntary support platforms. And by voluntary, that means nobody can mandate your affiliation to them. Mm-hmm. No employer can legally insist that you are a member of a charity in order to work, to be recruited, or to maintain employment. So just to be clear, unless you are a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist, you are not under the realm of a governing body in the UK. So let's just wanted to kind of get that.
And this shows the indoctrination, though, because I know that, and yet I still every now and again call them governing bodies because that's how they behave, and that's the terminology that my therapists use, you know. And I know there's no governing body for psychotherapists or counsellors. I know that, but it's so indoctrinated into people, and in particular trainees. You know, we've got 4 or 5 trainees working with us now, and the indoctrination from the colleges about them having to join particular governing bodies. You know, I find myself exasperated trying to explain to these trainees that they can't force you to join a voluntary register, but that they're hearing the complete opposite from their tutors, you know, and these tutors are very powerful, and they're hearing direct opposite. So I apologize, I fall into that lingo because I hear it so often, but I'm very, very aware that these are voluntary bodies, you know, they really are. But I, as I say, I fall into that lingo because I hear it so much from other people. Yeah.
And this is what employers hear. It's what the public hear. It's what government gets told.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've, you know, in recent months, you know, Siobhan and I have had meetings with senior management within the NHS, as an example. And they were convinced that there was a governing body because that's what they're told. And they put their hands up and go, that's what we are told. So that's why we can apply the bottleneck and we can restrict recruitment. And when you say, actually, do you know what? Last year, 2020 to 2021 was the first year the NHS started recording suicides while waiting for mental health services.
Oh, God.
Now, that's a frightening statistic when the only support system in the sector is voluntary. And you have this mandation being applied. And when you have the world of neurodiversity and the acceptance and the understanding and the diagnosis of neurodiversity coming to the fore, yet you have this pseudo control mechanism from charities who financially benefit from that And let's not forget, they are charities who are financially benefiting from an unethical restriction of recruitment.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder in the world of logic that that's going to cause a problem, not just for the professional, but also for those that are in need.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
when you see the rise in diagnosis, and as you pointed out before, the number of people that are being diagnosed going up, and the impacts of that diagnosis requiring additional psychological support, yet the very people that are best qualified to provide that support are getting the least amount of support from the traditional support systems.
Correct. Yeah.
So, you opened up the conversation with the very difference with APA. You've been through the experience yourself of joining the organization. Having gone through that and the support as a member, what would be your kind of breakaway advice to other professionals that are either neurodiverse themselves or neurodiverse aware in the way they operate?
I would tell them or advise them to look around, to not just accept what they're told by tutors or teachers at college, to look around and to actually understand that these support organisations are all voluntary, and that it's really critical. I had this conversation with one very recently, actually. They previously were qualified and a member of an organisation, but they've been doing something else and they're coming back to it. So I said, don't just assume there's one organisation that you can join. There's several, and if you specialise, have a look at the different ones that will help you. And this person is neurodiverse, so I explained to them about APA, and I said, APA is one that you should look at because they are very, very neurodiverse aware. They do have this different pathway for joining, and the difference with APA is that you will actually get to speak to the people who run it, and they're not some sort of vague board that you'll never ever get to hear about or communicate with. You can actually talk to the people themselves. They're extremely helpful. They will guide you if you need guidance, and most importantly, they're massively neurodiverse aware, and they've actually done something about that. Rather than just saying they're aware, they've done something about it in that they've created this different pathway. And also, I did say, I'm quite sure if things crop up in the future, and I need to speak to them and say, okay, this has happened with this person and it's really not working for them because they've got autism, they've got this. Is there anything we can do about changing the way you operate in this particular arena? And I said, I know these people will listen. Whereas if you actually said that to another organisation, I'm pretty sure you're going to be met with either nothing or a no. Whereas Apple will actually listen and go, okay, we didn't realize that bit doesn't work if you're autistic or if you're ADHD or whatever. We can look at doing different ways. I said, and that is, in my experience, and I've been doing this for 12 years, in my experience, that's unique. I haven't yet found another voluntary organisation that is approachable and will look at changing their policies and their ways of doing things to suit people's uniqueness. I haven't yet found another one that will do that. So I always say, look around. Don't just accept that there's one. Don't just be told by your tutors that you've got to join us. I mean, for example, I was told, and I was so perplexed at the time, because when you're at college, especially when you've got neurodiversity and ADHD like me, I didn't even understand the process. I was being told about supervision. I was being told about line managers. I was being told about governing bodies. I didn't know the difference between any of them. I didn't have a clue. With ADHD, we get very overwhelmed. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't know what I was being told, you've got to have a supervisor and you've got to have a line manager and you've got to have this and you've got to do a report for this and your supervisor got to do this. It was so perplexing and bamboozling that you end up just doing what you're told because it's easier and it's safer to just do what you're told. So you end up falling into belonging to different governing bodies because you're told you've got to be. And at the time, as I say, I didn't know the difference between a governing body, a supervisor, a line manager. placement manager. It was too much. So I would say to people, just take a breath, take a step back, understand that these are all voluntary registers, and find one that works for you. Look at your specialities, what you need, your areas of interest, and find one that works for you. It's taken me a long time to do that. I've been working as a counsellor now as a trainee since 2012, and it's taken me the best part of 10 years to realize that actually I do have choices, and actually I can look for organizations that understand me and want to understand me, and if I get into any sort of difficulties, will support me. It's taken me 10 years to find that, because I didn't have that before, and I've been a member of 3 different ones in the past, and none of them had any sort of neurodiversity understanding or pathways or different ways of doing things. They just didn't.
Yeah.
And it's massively important to us, because as I say, a lot of, especially when you take ADHD into account, ADHD people, one of our traits is we have more compassion than other people. We care very deeply. So the percentage of counsellors who are ADHD is massive, because we've all got that compassion, the extra compassion gene, So finding an organisation that supports that, understands the traits, understands why that might get us into trouble, but it's connected to our disability, is huge, because in my knowledge, it hasn't existed before.
Yeah. And I thank you so much for the advocacy that you put in to the work that APA does, and obviously your experience of how that benefit comes across and how having that effective voluntary support platform plays out in practice. One of the conversations that we've already had this week has highlighted on the external complaint protocols, and when a member is raising a complaint with organisations outside of APA, and the support that comes from that, because we know how when a professional is in that situation, it can be very, very isolating. But for a neurodiverse professional, the anxiety that comes from being in that situation is sometimes completely overwhelming, can't it?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I've had people who've approached me in very strict confidence, they've always said, and it's because they are absolutely terrified of their governing body. They are terrified that they will do something connected to their neurodiversity, so completely not able to not do it, but that they will do something and then they will be hauled over the coals and put through all sorts of lengthy proceedings, which will be wholly due to their neurodiversity, but not taking their neurodiversity into account. And there are
treat it like it's in a vacuum.
Yeah. There are neurodiverse people, as I say, who've come to me specifically and said, I've got to come and see you in very strict confidence. And then they've told me of things that they are doing that are connected, very, very mild things, but they're I'll give you one example: not keeping notes, not keeping the notes securely enough. And they're absolutely terrified that this would get picked up by certain organizations, and they wouldn't understand that losing things, not being able to find things, putting things in the wrong place, all ADHD traits, and they know that wouldn't have been taken into account if anybody had ever found what they were doing, sort of thing. I mean, the people that I've seen, not one of them was doing anything that I would have thought was worthy of investigation by anybody. Yeah. But that's not to say that other organizations might have felt it was their place to get involved. Can I just say one thing that I think is really important? You shouldn't be terrified of your voluntary body. I know a lot of people who are terrified, and I mean terrified, that they are going to get picked on, taken to panel meetings, whatever, because they're doing something connected to their neurodiversity. And when I say terrified, I mean petrified, absolutely petrified, that this will destroy them, destroy their career, stop them seeing clients, And I try to explain to these people, please don't join any organization that you're scared of. You know, the organization is there to support you. And if they're not there to support you, then they're no use whatsoever. You need them. If you're paying your money every year, you want something for that. And that should be understanding and support. I firmly believe they're the two most important things, understanding and support. And there are an awful lot of people, there are less and less of them in my team, because I'm having this conversation with more and more of them. You know, they're paying their money to people that they are petrified of. What's that all about? You know,
it's playground, you know, dinner money, isn't it? You know, it is an exploitation. You know, raise the fear level, take the dinner money. Thank you very much. You know, we'll leave you alone. And in all of that
they don't realize there's another way. This is the trouble. They've all been told you've got to join certain organizations or you'll never work. That's what they're told. You've got to join these or you'll never work. And they come away with this: I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. They pay their money and then they're petrified, absolutely petrified that they're going to do something that's going to, you know, publicly humiliate them. And this is what I'm trying to explain to people, but it's been so indoctrinated into them for years at college. You know, I'm trying to explain to them, it doesn't have to be that way. Counselling isn't scary. Counselling is a lovely thing. You know, counselling, we're lovely people. We care about people. We're doing our absolute best. Doesn't mean to say we're not going to make the odd mistake. We may well do. But if we do, we expect understanding and support, or we should be able to expect understanding and support from the people we are paying money every year to say, please be there for me if I need you. Please be there for me.
And it's worth,
you know, and that is a whole new thing for them.
And this is where I think it's worth pointing out the transparency of APA's complaint protocols, because it would be very easy to say, well, you know, someone's got a neurodiversity, it presents itself, a complaint is generated, the neurodiversity becomes a factor, hone in on that, you know, and as you say, the fear factor is risen. But with the complaint protocol that APA operates, that's very hard for us to be able to do that, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, yes, I think complaints procedure. I asked once, actually, when I was at college, and I'd actually, a particular body had come and done a presentation at the college, and it was the one night out of the entire 5.5 years training I did that I wasn't there, so I missed it. So I think I was on holiday. So the next week I came in and I said, they gave me the form and said, oh, you need to fill this in and you need to join this. And I said, oh, okay, why? What's the benefit? What do I get, you know, for my money? What am I getting? And I was told it gives somewhere for your clients to complain about you. And I was like, yeah, and what else? Oh, that's pretty much it. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, I've run a business for 25 years. Anybody who's got a complaint about my business comes to me. I sort my complaint out. You know, I don't need somewhere external for somebody to go and complain about me. That's not a good enough reason for me to join an organization. I want more than that. And I think with you, that's the big difference, that there is a lot more than that. Your organization does offer a lot more than that to your therapist, loads and loads of different things. Yes, of course, it's a complaints procedure, but yours is transparent. That's very, very different to how, and also yours is, there's a word for this and I can never remember. What's the word where things go up gradually? There's a word.
They escalate.
Escalate, thank you. There's an escalation procedure. Now with certain other organizations, there's not. You go straight from what one would consider a minor complaint to a massive equivalent of a court case, you know, and there is no escalation procedure. They ask you what your learning is, how you'll do things differently. They ask you all this and you give them all this information. It's irrelevant, because you go straight to the court procedure, you know, and that's shocking. I don't know any other organization that runs itself like that. And that, for that to be an organization linked to counselling, appalls me, because in counselling, we're all about understanding, not judging, seeing things from the client's point of view, walking in the client's shoes, all of this. And I think that's what you as an organization do. But there's other organizations out there who are the polar opposite.
Mm.
And they don't see things from the counsellor's point of view, and they don't seek to support the counsellor. And that to me is the only use and benefit of any organisation who is working with counsellors. What's the point of us joining any organisation if they're not there to help us, if they're not there to support us, if they're not there to listen to any problems we've got, if they're not there to encourage, let's say, people like the NHS, people, rehabs, to take on therapists who are fully qualified. Also, I think another thing to point out is the accreditation thing. We have got several people that have been through an organisation's accreditation and found it extremely difficult and extremely expensive. And we've got people at the moment who are thinking of doing it and feel they've got to do it, but again, they're finding it impossible to what's the word? They're finding it impossible to operate the system within the system that there is. And there's one person actually did ask an organisation, is there a different pathway for somebody with neurodiversity? And was told, all they were told was, well, we can give you more time if you want it. So it's the same process. We'll just give you more time if you want it. A lot of people with neurodiversity don't need more time. They need a lot of different things, but don't just need more time. So I think that's what's different about you. You will listen. I know that if I've got a therapist who wants to join you and they've got, let's say, for argument's sake, they have got social anxiety. Yeah, let's say they've got social anxiety, because a lot of people with ADHD and ASD have. If I was to say to you that they would like to do the video version, but they cannot look at themselves on screen, so you will be able to see them, but they cannot be able to see themselves on screen, I'm quite sure you would be amenable to that. But I'm quite sure a lot of other organisations wouldn't entertain it, because they wouldn't take that particular person's needs into account. I think with you, the biggest difference you've got, and please hang on to it, is that you will listen to people. You know that people aren't all the same. You know that neurodiverse people come with 1,000 million different variations of different conditions and comorbidities and severities and needs and all the rest of it. I don't have social anxiety. I can talk for England, but I've got loads and loads of therapists who have got social anxiety, and there's certain things they can't do, and that's fine. We accept that. That's fine. And to have a organisation that accepts it is very unique.
And this again comes into the effective support, because someone who has got those challenges, and they are just challenges, it's a hurdle in front of them, but nobody has to jump over every hurdle. There are other ways to get round a hurdle than running through it. And the support system and the peer support platform that APA operates for those members allows for those anxieties and those challenges to be aired in a safe space and supported by other members who have got as much, if not more, understanding than Siobhan, myself, the team can possibly have. So those kind of challenges and those hurdles don't have to be as big for an indefinite period, because, as you say, by understanding that they're there, by accommodating in the immediate, understanding it, and then working a solution that doesn't take away any of the protections for the client. In essence, it actually enhances the protections for the client. We don't take away any, or, as you say, it's not making things any easier. There's no positive discrimination, as it's called, in a lot of places. And there's no quota. Nobody is saying, we have in the UK an estimated 106,000 qualified therapeutic professionals under the age of retirement that have qualified at level 4 and above, right? But when we look at what are the membership numbers, there is no organisation that comes anywhere near that level of engagement. And there is even less within the numbers that are affiliated to those voluntary support platforms that meet the criteria to work with organizations such as the NHS.
Mm.
So we've got the smallest amount of professionals qualified to do the most amount of work that's required, and all the time the traditional voluntary support organizations are taking the financial benefit of channeling everybody through their system, when actually the professionals that are needed in a large part are already staying away from those organizations. So I suppose as kind of bringing the conversation to a close, and as you say, your organization now is heading towards that 100 counsellor mark across various disciplines within therapeutic and support arenas. If there was the magic wand for what voluntary support platforms could do within the neurodiverse arena, what would you like to see APA, particularly as torchbearer within the sector, providing, kind of moving forward?
Okay, well, I think you're doing it genuinely. I'm not just saying this because everybody knows me. I don't sugarcoat anything and I don't lie. Genuinely, you're doing a very good job already. I think if you wanted to improve anything, you might want to split down neurodiversity a bit. So you might want to split down into having a dyslexia champion, a dyscalculia champion, a dysgraphia champion, actually splitting it down even more, so that there are teams within neurodiversity who specialize in those different areas. That's probably the only thing I can think of, because everything else you've made.
Okay, I am not sure whether are we back?
Because you're already doing it.
Well, thank you. It's amazing to hear that feedback. It's it validates everything that Siobhan and I have wanted to kind of build into place and weave into the DNA of APA. And on the recognition champions, I suppose in some way the recognition awards that APA already hold for neurodiversity, when anybody is awarded one of those recognition awards, the reason they're awarded it is available to potential clients to see for themselves. So those sub-specializations, if you like, will always be recognized within the overall recognition. And by having that recognition award, and it's worth pointing out, those recognition awards are not just for APA members. Professionals that are not members of APA can still apply to be recognized by APA as a specialist in those areas. And we've got 12 recognition awards currently available, and each year we will be looking at growing those, kind of normally around 3 a year we will look to be growing. But as it stands at the moment, there are 12 recognition awards. One of those is neurodiversity, and those sub recognitions are included in kind of allowing people to see what the baseline of an individual award is for. But as we move forward into a world that is certainly more aware of neurodiversity, APA's focus has always been, you can be aware as much as you want, but it's what you do about that awareness that makes a difference. And you can change anything with awareness, but if it doesn't make a difference, you've had no impact. So as you were saying before, people can tick the box when it comes to neurodiversity, but what do they do that makes a difference? and Apple will always strive to be making a difference rather than ticking a box. Oh. As it appears, we've lost signal with Sarah. So I'm going to wrap up the conversation and say a massive thank you for Sarah for taking the time out between appointments. I know she's working on her second book around neurodiversity. So a massive thank you for Sarah for taking that time out. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to watch the conversation. And if you've benefited from anything out of Sarah's knowledge, experience and understanding around the effective voluntary support platform, then by all means, hit the link in the description video and get your CPD questionnaire. Apple will not give out CPD certificates without a validation questionnaire. So the public can have faith that what you've watched, you've gained from, and that's validated. So for now, I want to say thank you to everybody. Take care, and we will see you again in another conversation very, very soon. Bye-bye for now.